Today, we're diving into a legal case that honestly reads more like a mystery novel. It's about one man representing himself who's claiming that for over a decade, the entire justice system has been coming after him based on, well, a ghost. A court order that he says was never even real to begin with. It's a pretty wild story about alleged government failure, financial disaster, and a relentless fight to be heard. So it all really comes down to this one kind of strange question. How can an official document, filed with a court by the government, legally be considered nothing? Like it just doesn't count. That's the heart of emotion we're looking at today. The petitioner, Gerald Hirschfeld, is arguing that a key government filing against him is what lawyers call a nullity. Basically, it's so full of errors, it's legally invisible, as if it never happened. And Mr. Hirschfeld, who's his own lawyer in this, is not messing around. He lays out the state's actions in these two very stark options. He's basically telling the judge, look, either these people were being deliberately dishonest and trying to evade the facts, or they are so catastrophically incompetent that it has the exact same effect. Either way, it's a huge accusation right from the get-go. Okay, so to really get his argument, you have to start where he starts, with the single document that kicked off this whole fight. According to him, the state's official response to his claims wasn't just a little sloppy. He argues it was riddled with mistakes so basic, they're almost hard to believe. Just take a look at this. The state filed its response in a JV or juvenile case, but his case is a DR, domestic relations case. That's a totally different area of the court. And then it gets weirder. The filing names a child who has absolutely nothing to do with his family. I mean, it's not just the wrong case number, it is literally the wrong family.
So here's why that matters so much. He's arguing these aren't just clerical errors. This isn't just a typo. By filing a document in the wrong case about the wrong people, he's saying the state completely failed to legally respond to him at all. It's not a defective response. In his eyes, it's a complete non-response, a legal nothing.
But believe it or not, that botched filing is really just the tip of the iceberg. It's what opens the door to his much bigger, much more shocking claim that the entire decade-long case against him has been built on a foundation of sand. His entire 10-year battle, everything he's alleging, really hinges on one single explosive sentence buried in the official court record from way back in 2015. And there it is. That's the sentence. It's from something called a minute order, which is basically the court's own official diary of what happened that day. He's pointing to this and saying, see, the court itself admitted right here in its own notes that it was unable to actually create a formal child support order against me. And that right there is the heart of his entire case. He's saying that for the last 10 years, he's had his wages taken, his credit destroyed, and his driver's license suspended, all in the name of enforcing this phantom order, an order that the court's own records seem to prove was never actually finalized. But the story keeps going. It's not just about one phantom order. This central problem, he claims, was made way, way worse by a whole bunch of other systemic failures that created this just tangled mess of legal and bureaucratic confusion. For example, he talks about what he calls worksheet fraud. In Colorado, the law is pretty clear. There are two different forms to calculate child support. The state used worksheet A, which is for when one parent has the kids almost all the time, but he says his custody plan was shared 50-50, which legally required them to use worksheet B, and that would have led to a much, much lower child support number. Now, things get even more complicated, because this case involves two states, Colorado and South Dakota. And whenever that happens, there's a big federal law that's supposed to kick in. Its whole purpose is super simple. Make sure only one state is the boss of a case at any given time. It's designed specifically to prevent the kind of jurisdictional nightmare that the petitioner says he's been living. In his motion, he uses the state's own emails to paint this picture of a jurisdictional black hole. You have a South Dakota official allegedly admitting they have no jurisdiction but taking action anyway. Then you have Colorado officials saying, hey, we're just doing what South Dakota tells us to do. So who's actually in charge? He argues nobody was, and that's illegal. So, okay, we've talked about the paperwork, the legal arguments, but what does all of this actually mean for a human being? Well, the motion paints a really grim picture of the real-world costs. Let's start with the money. Based on his own audit of all the payments, the petitioner claims he has been overcharged by at least $116,000. That is a life-changing amount of money. All of it, he says, based on bad math and a non-existent order. But it goes way beyond just the money. He actually calculated the personal toll. He says that because the state suspended his driver's license, he couldn't work. And because he couldn't work, he spent 527 documented days homeless. And this isn't something that happened years ago. The threat is immediate. In his filing, he says he's facing yet another license suspension and that his apartment lease is up in just 19 days. It creates this ticking clock, suggesting that if the court doesn't act fast, he could lose everything all over again. So all of this, all these details and accusations, it all builds to one single goal. He wants to finally get his day in court, a real hearing with evidence where he can make his case. So what's on his list for the judge? Well, it's a big one. First, throw out the state's messed up response. Second, make the state agencies in both Colorado and South Dakota actual defendants in this case. Third, declare that original 2015 order void from day one. And of course, he wants an immediate hearing to stop the damage. And he wants a full accounting and the return of that $116,000 he says he overpaid. You know, when you boil it all down, he's relying on a really fundamental legal idea that the substance of what happened should matter more than just procedural formalities. He's essentially saying to the court, forget the technicalities for a second and just look at your own documents. The truth is right there in the record. And really, that leaves us with this huge question that's so much bigger than just this one case. When a regular person, by themselves, using the system's own paperwork, claims that the system itself is fundamentally broken, what on earth does it take for them to finally be heard?